Houston, Texas.
No way.
Yeah,
the
Laugh
second
Factory.
funniest.
Have you ever been there?
Yes.
Okay, well,
I performed at the Laugh Factory in Houston. We're going.
Oh, okay, well.
Yeah. And tell me, so I performed at the Laugh Factory in Houston. Maybe not the exact one you went to, but maybe.
Maybe. Who knows? It was 1996, so probably a little before your time.
Okay, yeah. I was more into Ninja Turtles at that time in my life. I think I was a big Ninja Turtle guy. Super Nintendo would come out, and I was really into that. Or no, 1996 was PlayStation.
Really?
PlayStation had just come out because in 1997 a game called Final Fantasy VII comes out, and that game changes everything. Are you a big video game guy?
I would be if I weren't a monk. I tell the kids that if I were, I don't know if I should share this or not, but I tell the kids anyway that if I were not a monk, I would live in my parents' basement, smoking dope and watching pornography and playing video games for all my life. I'm in. Yeah.
Listen, no, but it's like if you don't find Jesus and you don't do the thing that you're called to do, you'll end up being that other thing.
That's right.
Obviously.
Well, I guess I never thought of it quite that way. I just thought I'm a loser, so I have to become a monk, or else I'll be completely out of place. Speaking of which, I don't know how this.
We were talking about how you're the second funniest man in Houston 2 years running.
The funniest guy was very funny, though. He was
okay.
He had this whole routine about his girlfriend putting on her makeup in the car and how that was like wrapping a present after you give it to somebody. And he was really funny. And I was a juggler, and that kind of worked.
You were
against me.
juggling?
I was a professional juggler for 8 years.
No way.
Yeah. Flying Fettuccine Brothers. You can look us up online.
That's crazy. You were juggling? So wait, hold up.
But then the second year, I broke my leg, so I couldn't juggle. But I learned how to play my crutch like a flute. And for my comedy routine, I played Ode to Joy on my crutch.
Father, that's the... You said so many things that require me to ask questions in a row.
Okay. All right, let's hit them.
Hold on.
Do I get to ask you questions?
100%.
Dizzies for you.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Firstly, before we start, everyone,
we haven't started.
This is my friend Father Wetta.
Where are you looking?
This way.
Oh, okay.
He is a Benedictine monk.
I'm his friend.
And he's my friend.
When I met him, I thought he was a homeless person. And I thought I was being nice, and then later somebody said, "Do you know?" Or sent me a link to one of your videos about karate. I was like, "Wait a second, this guy's really famous."
So for everyone who doesn't know, last year I was at a convention with a bunch of Catholic people, and I was watching a gentleman named Father Gregory Pine give a speech.
Who, by the way, had just given a radio interview, and he knew me. I knew him before he was a big shot, and he knew me before I started doing this stuff. I went up behind him while he was doing his interview and gave him a double wet willy.
Oh, he told me about that.
Did he?
He was like, something about a grown man giving you a wet willy is like terrifying.
There's a reason why some of us become monks. Because we just are out of control otherwise. But anyway, go ahead.
So I'm sitting at this convention, and I went there by myself to just see the lay of the land. I'm becoming
this is
Catholic.
An ADD guy giving an interview to an ADD guy.
It's tough.
This could explode.
So I'm in the middle of this thing, and I'm going to this talk, and I'm sitting by myself because I'm by myself, and I'm trying to watch this talk. And so you saw me sitting by myself, and you thought to yourself, no one wants to sit with this smelly, weird homeless guy whose face tattoos. How do you even get in here? But to your great credit, you were like, well, this is my whole job. I got to get in there and hang out with this guy.
Well, but also I've learned that asking weird people interesting questions leads to good answers.
So true.
I met this blind guy the other day, and I asked him, heck, if you're out there, write your name in the YouTube comments or something so you can get credit for this. But
unfortunately, he's not watching.
Because this is on.
Because he's blind. Yeah.
Was it Father Spitzer?
Hold on. No,
was it Father Spitzer?
Like Father Spitzer. Don't say that name around me.
Oh,
wait. Is this being recorded though?
Oh, it's being recorded.
Oh, and I cursed. Sorry about that.
Wait, what did you think we were doing?
Never mind. No, Father Spitzer is an enemy to me. He does everything I do except better. And then on top of that, he's a really, really nice guy.
This is an anti-Father Spitzer podcast.
If I had I met him once, and he was so nice, and I was so disappointed because I would love to be able to say to people, "Yeah, but he's really a jerk when you get him alone." He's not. Well, no, I won't say it, but he may be a saint, or at least he's well on his way, because that guy will give you 100% of his attention when there are 700 people waiting to talk to him.
Wait, what were you saying? Can you say that again?
Exactly. Yeah, nice try.
Thank you.
Where were we? We were talking about comedy.
You were
second
playing your
place,
crutch like a flute, and then you were the
Flying
second
Fettuccine
funniest
Brothers.
person, and then you juggled. And
Yeah,
then
if I killed one
I was
person in
homeless.
Houston, I could have been the funniest person.
Man.
Oh, yeah. And so I asked this blind guy, I was like, what's the best thing about being blind? And he said, I never wait in line at restaurants.
Yeah, that rocks. What a
Isn't
good
it
answer.
cool? Yeah. And so I was talking to this lady tonight who is in a wheelchair. I said, what's the best thing about being in a wheelchair? And she said, the same thing, actually. I think she said, I get the best seat at the movies.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What's the best part about being a monk? You're like, I
wish I had
do
a
wait in lines at
snappy answer.
restaurants.
Yeah, well, I don't go to restaurants. My monastery, we are not allowed to eat out.
Oh,
except
really?
when we're traveling, which is why I travel so much.
Yeah, you travel as much as you can to get that delicious McDonald's.
Ooh.
No McRibs at the monastery.
Yeah, I've never had a McRib.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Wow, they're really good.
Are they?
No.
They look terrible.
So here's the deal. I grew up very poor. And so my palate is situated to, I ate a lot of dry ramen as a child.
I lived on dry ramen as a college student.
And so then
I love dry ramen. Dry ramen with peanut butter and honey.
Yeah, yes. And then regular mac and cheese, canned soup, cold SpaghettiOs. These are things that are delicacies to me. I enjoy these things.
Comfort food.
Exactly. And so then when I go to eat good food, I can't tell the difference. So a McRib to me is a delicacy because it tastes like ribs, and that's what ribs taste like in my mind because I grew up eating like microwave food. So the McRib tastes comfortable to me.
I grew up with the next best thing to impoverished parents, which is academics. So we had powdered milk, spinach pizza, mushroom, mushroom meat. We had meat once a week because my mom thought it was too expensive. But then...
Wow.
But yeah, and it's so funny because in their latter years, at like 75, 76, my mom suddenly realized they had all this money. So they went off to Paris and they took, now they eat steak every night. And I don't know where that was leading me.
Yeah, good for them though.
Yeah, well.
They waited till you got out and they were like, it's meat time.
Yeah, no joke. I never thought that was a selfish thing to do.
They ever give you some steak?
Now?
Yeah.
Whenever I visit.
That's great. Good for you.
It is great.
So,
yeah.
You became a monk.
Oh, the best thing about being a monk. Well, I really like walking through airports in my habit.
Yeah, that looks okay. So every time
that's the funnest thing.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between fun and joy, right? And,
right.
Yeah.
Those are totally different.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That's a very interesting thing that I did not consider before converting. That pleasure and joy, or pleasure and fulfillment and true happiness, are two separate things. I thought they were the same thing. So I was pursuing pleasure, and I was very depressed, and my life was very hard and bad. And I thought, so strange that I'll be in a room full of people I enjoy, and I'll be miserable, even though I'm happy. And I thought I was mentally ill. I was just not living my life correctly. It turns out I didn't need medication. I was totally fine. I just wasn't living life in a principled or good way. And as soon as I started realizing the difference between pleasure and the difference between joy, my life got exponentially better. But of course, joy is centered around God.
And around suffering.
Selflessness, and giving to the other, and all these other things. And so that was a fun thing. But I found that now that I found joy, pleasure is so much better. And especially when in the
Well, that's
context of
interesting.
joy.
Yes.
So like
Yeah.
when you say like walking around in my habit at the airport, I love when I
I gotta
see
start
you.
writing things down.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
This is one of
Truly,
those- This is
listen.
how we met. isn't it?
This is a Shane Smith show, and we're very informal, and you're allowed to do whatever you want during.
Well, I'm thinking about joy and pleasure and
Yeah. So
Holiness
when
and-
I every time I see a religious, for those of you watching who aren't Catholic or aren't very well catechized or whatever, a religious is a monk. It's one of the guys in the cool outfits or one of the ladies in the outfits. And every time I see a nun or a religious in the airport, I always
who have wet willy repellent systems on.
yeah.
I tried on the Dominican sisters. I went up and like, refused.
some of those nuns though they have the habit that just kind of sits on top the head and then the veil goes down
Yeah,
and
that's
they're
like a French thing. In there or
and
something
so
like
they're the
that. I
French
could wet
are
willy them. I could. What is French for wet willy?
I don't know. Wet Willon.
Close enough.
Wait. There we go.
I have this friend who's a French monk, and I went to visit him, and a buddy of mine came to visit us, and I convinced the whole monastery to pretend like I spoke French.
That's
So I
incredible.
translate. They all spoke English, so I translated for him the whole weekend. Je le crois le bon sang, le petit, le petit, le bon sang, le bon sang. They'd say, ah, oui, le bon sang. Anyway,
incredible.
where were we?
Joy and pleasure.
Joy and pleasure.
So
Joy versus fun.
anyway, I take anytime I see a nun or a religious, honestly, sometimes anytime I see any kind of priest, I always ask for a blessing because I'm about to fly. Come on.
Yeah.
You want the blessed person on your plane, right?
Well, yeah. Although I heard a really great story from one of these. Have you ever met a Miles Christi priest?
No.
Yeah, they're very rare. But I was at a conference with him, and he talked about being on a plane with a pilot who was riding just next to him in the passenger seat. And they started to get some turbulence, and he was saying his rosary. He's like, "Would you like to pray with me?" He goes, "I can't." He's like, "Why not?" He's like, "Because when people see the pilot praying, they all panic." And it never occurred to me that pilots can't be seen praying, or else everybody panics.
That's very funny. Yeah, it's true. So I always ask for a blessing, and when I see, but I see nuns religious, I always, if they're buying something or whatever, I try to buy something for them because I know that you guys are poor. You're so poor. It's crazy how
Not
poor
the
you are.
Benedictines. We don't take a vow of poverty.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we can be really rich.
So
and not
and
personally.
now I know every time I see you guys, I go, I would
You'll
buy you
say-
your chips and drink, but
Would you
no.
treat me to this? There is actually a monastery of our congregation. I'm of the English congregation.
Yes.
You want to stay away from the French, the American Cassinese, the Swiss, but
Mm-hmm.
the English are fine. Actually, that's not true. They're all good. But there was a house of our congregation that until 1960 had white gloved waiters at all their meals
No way.
because they recruited from the royalty. And for them, this was a big step down. I mean, this was poverty for them. right?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I went. Oh no, go ahead. So,
I don't even know.
Joy and fun.
So we're talking about
Sorry.
the airport. Anyway, anytime
Yeah.
I see a religious at the airport, there's like a power. Like as they walk around, they kind of are moving people around them. Heads are turning. People
Isn't
are
that
all very
interesting?
interested, and there's like a sort of respect thing happening, and people are curious, respectful, and it
They
just looks
are.
powerful. It looks like a
No, I
powerful. So when
never-
you say you enjoy it, I'm like, wow, that confirms everything I thought. Because I watch a religious walk around the
Yeah.
airport or in public, and I go, I can just see the effect they're having on normal, everyday, secular people.
That's funny because I never thought of it as power. I just thought of it as like it's just fun because people open up to you. Like,
Yes, well-
especially non-Catholics.
What
Like,
power is the ability to affect someone, right?
Yeah.
And so I do. You're proving my point.
Okay. Well, I
What do they say to
Power.
you? Do you?
Oh, well, people always ask me, like, on your travels, do people ever spit on you or try to convert you?
Oh, yeah.
And I always ask them to try to guess how many times per year that happens. And the answer is it has never happened to me.
Interesting.
Never. I've never even had a dirty look from somebody.
Incredible. I love
Yeah.
that for you.
Yeah. Me too. Because
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with what people think of me. So
Yeah. Oh, isn't that a problem?
yeah, it is. Actually, I had a friend
Mm-hmm.
who was a comedian, and I guess this is a thing that you guys say.
You have other comedian friends?
Well, I did.
Okay.
I haven't seen him in years, but somebody he had a heckler who said something like, you just trying to get my approval or something. He said, well, yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I do this.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got a question for you. How do you handle hecklers?
I don't have very many. So just like people think the priest is getting spit on or disrespected, or you've got like Jehovah's Witnesses coming at you or whatever, people often think that I'm getting heckled all the time. And it almost never happens.
Did it happen to you before you went Catholic?
Or
before you went, what did they call it? Dry heaves or something?
Dryheave.com. That's where I do my comedy.
No,
Dry Bar.
Dry Bar.
So I've always done comedy with Dry Bar, even when I was a very secular gentleman. Dry Bar is owned by religious people, but I was friends with a bunch of them.
Yeah,
I've been very blessed.
And people at Dry Bar don't heckle because they're sober and they're cool.
No. But I do have a ton of straight up comedy fans, a lot of secular comedy fans, and so I'm in the realm of getting heckled. But I find that because I tell stories, people are engaged in a way that they don't want to heckle me. I will say, however, I would say every 15th show, it is a drunk woman. And she is kind of like not really yelling. She's not being mean. She's not calling me out.
She's just trying to be part of the show.
She's trying to be part of the show where she's like, tell them.
Jugglers have that problem
Preach
too,
or whatever.
Yeah.
You have the problem where drunk women try and get on and they try to juggle with you.
Well, yeah, actually, on the street, we never juggled any. Well, that's not true. We did occasionally, but yeah, people who come from the audience who want to be part of the act.
Yeah.
Jump in or shout out the punchlines before you get them in.
Right. Or they're
but
like,
how do you handle that without alienating the audience?
Here's what I do. I say I ignore them in such a way that it is very obvious that I heard them. And I sort of acknowledge them silently, and then I just keep going, which sort of I think that sometimes someone's socially aware enough to be like, he heard me and he didn't engage me. That is embarrassing. And so then they stop what they're doing.
But they're not sober.
But they're not sober sometimes. And then I usually engage them politely. I say, I see what you're doing, and I love you so much, but I don't need help. And you know what I mean? And often I think that's enough that they feel like, ooh, I was involved, but I have to be quiet now. And I've had very good luck.
You never had anybody like escorted out or anything?
I have had that happen.
Tell me about it. This is the part of comedy.
Yeah.
It's like hearing confessions. Everybody wants to know what your worst confession was or something.
Yeah. But, and you're like, I can't tell you. That's not even how it
works.
works.
I cannot tell you, but confessions are boring. So it's like asking me which was my most entertaining quiz I took in high school.
Yeah. People are sinful. End of story. But so maybe I love to imagine that there was someone confessed to heckling a comedian to a priest, and that if someone heckled me and then we have some kind of intersection, but that would never happen, probably.
Not likely.
In any case, I've never had it's only ever been women.
The woman was escorted. I want to know what she said.
I made a joke about I was doing a joke about a time I dated a very jealous woman. I had a story about when I dated a very, very jealous woman, and she found a poop in my toilet that had not been flushed. And then she, instead of doing that, because I was a young man, right, and I lived with many other young men. And instead of saying, you're in a house of young men, you're all 19 and you're disgusting animals, instead of saying, obviously one of you did this and that's gross, she accused me of having a woman over, and that woman left that. And her reasoning was that it was feminine, and it was a whole thing. Anyway, she was a wild woman, right? I dated her for a very long time. Against all better judgment.
Yeah, that
I
sounds
did
like
this
a
bit.
dead end.
This woman was a Latino woman.
Okay.
And so I made a joke about it. I told that story. I made a joke. And then later on in a story, I talk about a fight. And I say, I said something about how I'm proficient in fighting. I've dated a Latina woman. I can defend myself. And this other woman in the crowd was like, she yelled out like, something about I couldn't defend myself from her, and then she was being very rude, and then she called something else out, and basically she thought that I was like attacking
Her or her
South
race
American
or
women or
something.
Latina
Yeah,
women,
yeah.
and then someone else in the audience yelled out and was like, he's literally saying that he likes, and then they
Yeah.
argued. And then
That's a good sign, though, right? When
Right.
the audience begins to turn on them.
Exactly, and which is true. I was being positive. I was making a silly joke, and so then because two people yelled at each other, now security is like, everyone be quiet. So security is involved, and that shames people in a certain specific way that makes them
Kind
embarrassed.
of takes a wind out of your sails. though,
And
doesn't it,
yes,
when the
that's you
security
don't want
has
that
to-
as a
yeah.
comedian. Well, then she got mad, and then someone else in the audience confronted her. She was so ridiculous that people in the audience were like going at her, and
Oh,
then
no.
she became combative with the audience. At which point, she started like her friends were like, "You have to be quiet," which then made her more mad. And now she's full on, you're so embarrassed. Your friends are mad. So she's like, I've gone too far. I have to go the whole way and get kicked out of this joint, right? And so then she was just yelling at the person at the table
It's like
next to
starting
her.
a war in Afghanistan. Once you're in, like you gotta
11
keep pouring
years.
more and
You
more
just-
money,
Yeah.
troops. You have to commit.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that's a perfect explanation. My comedy shows are a lot like the war in
lot like a war.
Afghanistan. They're expensive, they're pointless, and afterwards, everyone's like, "What was that all about?"
Yeah, that's sort of monasteries in the nutshell, actually. You
So
mentioned.
she got into an argument, and she argued. She was
That's what
battling
got
the
her.
audience, and that's how
Oh,
she was
no.
escorted out. And then apparently she came back to rejoin the show about 20 minutes after. So her and her
And they
friends
let her?
left. No.
Oh.
They told me about it after the show. They were like, "Hey, just so you know, that woman came back and tried to apologize, and she was so drunk that she didn't remember arguing because she was like, 'Can I please come back to the show?' And they were like, 'No, you were literally arguing with the audience on the comedian's behalf.' And then she was like, 'That didn't happen.' And just kind of
That
like
did-
gaslit them. Another
Or tried
time,
to.
two people began fist fighting during the set.
Over something you said?
I don't know. No one knows. They just started fighting. It was in Washington, D.C.
That's exciting.
Yes, it was. And I wanted to get involved, but because there was no
In
antecedent.
the fight, you wanted to like throw a punch?
Yeah, I wanted to know who was right. Often, and this is a problem because
That specifically, the rule of St. Benedict says, do not interfere in other people's arguments,
yeah, and
even
that's-
if you're related to them.
I think that's smart and positive and
is.
probably good. But I grew up.
But you were not a disciple of St. Benedict at that point.
No,
was that Noah? Or Noah? Joseph?
Yeah, it's smart and good and right. But I grew up in a trailer park where getting involved in conflict was like 90% of how we just passed the time.
Yeah.
And so anytime there's a fight, there's this part of my trailer trash brain that goes, find out who's correct and fight on the side of that person. And so
Plus, there might be some comic potential there. you know?
and so the fight broke out, and I wanted to be involved. And then I thought to myself, why would I do this? I'm here to bring these people joy. Why am I trying to fight? And then I thought, well, I don't know who's right or who's wrong. And then they were both kicked out. And after the show, I made jokes about it, made everyone feel better, made everyone feel safe. And then we kept going.
What kind of joke do you tell about two guys fist fighting?
You're just like, well, that was
Awkward.
Yeah. Basically, you're like, I didn't know I was that funny, that type of thing. I don't remember what I said, but I'll assure you it's much more clever than whatever I'm thinking of right now. And the audience loved it, and everyone was happy. But after the show, I asked the staff, I was like, what was that about? And they're like, we literally don't know. And they didn't even fight when they left. Like, they got into a full-on physical confrontation. Fist fighting across the table.
A physical conversation.
Confrontation.
I like
And-
physical conversation.
Yeah.
There's something about that. Like, I don't like you. You don't like me.
And they got kicked out, and I think that them getting kicked out together was like a bonding moment, even, which is a very man thing to
yeah.
do. You both fist fight. I have a couple friends who I'm lifelong friends with that I fought before we were friends, and so they left, and then no one solved the mystery, so I never knew. All I know is that these two dudes fought. Them and their girlfriends left
maybe
the
they
building.
will see this video and email you what they were fighting about.
That would be incredible. I would love for them to be like, we're actually friends. We spent Christmas together. I'd be like,
he's my godfather. It's the godfather to my children.
right?
Yeah.
That's me bringing people together through fist fighting. But at Washington, D.C., and I invited Joe Biden to that show, and he didn't come.
Oh,
I know. Not a
maybe
fan of
he
comedy.
just didn't hear you.
Maybe.
Or didn't remember.
Or didn't remember.
Notice.
Yeah, he was home.
Poor guy. He's such a good Catholic.
Uh,
Okay, we're going to race last 20 seconds. Don't get political.
no, he's not.
I make no judgment. Oh, wait. What I
Yeah,
can't. I'm
whichever
not good at
button
this.
does the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not here to judge him. Listen. I hope the best for him. He's very old and he's not doing well. It's the Benedictine.
Right.
Why?
Back to
How did you
yeah.
end up picking that over the other orders?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't. I came to St. Louis to go to graduate school for archaeology. I was going to become an archaeologist.
Okay.
But they wouldn't give me money at Missouri, at University of Missouri, which had 3 Byzantine archaeologists at the time.
Whoa.
They wouldn't give me a scholarship unless I was a resident. So I established, while I was spending my year establishing residency, I met these monks, and I had, all right, backwards a couple of steps.
I thought you were gonna say
Yeah.
I was there to be an archaeologist. I kept juggling the artifacts. I was removed
dropped-
from the program.
I actually dropped a Sumerian tablet once and shattered into like a billion pieces. Yeah, I was at University of Pennsylvania, and they have a large collection, and I pulled one off the shelf and dropped it. But it was like a grocery list or something. It wasn't anything
Oh, okay.
important.
It was just like a 5,000-year-old grocery list. It's fine.
But there may be a 500,000 of these in the world, because clay does not
Yeah.
dissolve, and it's the plastic of the ancient world. So
Yeah.
and the Sumerians kept them pretty safe. So
That's beautiful. I think that's cool. I love archaeology. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Indiana Jones. Because that's what I
Yeah.
thought archaeology was.
I thought it was that too. It turns out about 99% is sitting in a library basement reading about wagon wheel shapes or something ridiculously boring like that.
Yeah.
But I did dig up a piece of a Spartan shield.
That's
while I was
awesome.
in Athens.
A Lacedaemonian shield. That's right.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
didn't think I would know, but I'm a history guy.
That's good.
Big time.
So I was, actually, okay, so to pull all the threads together,
Yes.
I was in Rome, where I was part of the Intercollegiate Center for Classical Studies at Rome. There you go.
Okay.
Say that 5 times in a row.
I won't.
Okay. And I was working in the Forum. I was backfilling at the Temple of the Vestals. And every day after work was ended around noon, I would go to the Vatican for Mass, because you can in
Yeah,
Rome. That's
why
cool.
wouldn't you? That's incredible.
But the bus from the Forum to the Vatican is full of pickpockets.
Yes.
And so you begin to recognize them. And the thing is, if you're a local, which I wasn't, but I was pretending to be, then you know not to say to everybody, hey, everybody, there's a pickpocket on the bus, because then he gets upset, might hurt somebody trying to get off, that kind of thing. So what you do is you sidle up to them, and you wait till they start to pickpocket, and you give them a shove.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm watching this pickpocket do his thing, and there's a monk at the end of the bus. And at that point, I didn't know that monks existed, so I was kind of watching them both. And I saw them begin to converge, right? And the monk's like staring out the back window. So I get up and I work my way through the bus next to the pickpocket, and the pickpocket reaches in, and I shoved him. Right. And he hits the monk, and the monk is just oblivious, just staring out the window. So the pickpocket goes a second time. I hit him a second time, harder.
Yeah.
And this time the two of them but the monk does not, there's no reaction from the monk. So the third time I go to hit the pickpocket, he looks at me and goes,
Yeah, very Italian of him.
Yeah.
He's exasperated in Italian.
Come on, I'm trying to do my job here. So I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Scusi, questo è un borseggio. This is a pickpocket." He goes, "Are you American?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Me too." I go, "Well, this guy's trying to pick your pocket." He goes, "Yeah, I know. I don't have any pockets." I thought it was funny. And I thought to myself at the time, like, that's a power. Like that's that power you're talking about. Like the ability to turn a situation that would drive me nuts or make me very angry, and just have it be entertainment, you know?
Right.
And so I started talking to him. He had been a bartender at Pat O'Brien's. He had played football for Notre Dame, And he was not. I remember saying to him, I thought all monks were like little bald dudes that didn't talk to anybody. He goes, well, some of us are, but and we got to be friends. And he got me a job after my term at the forum was over, working as a janitor in the monastery. And so then,
oh my gosh, you're like the Goodwill Hunting of monks.
Was he? Oh yeah,
He's the janitor, and then he solves the math problem.
Yes. Well, I didn't solve any problems for the monks. Well, actually, I did because there was to take the story onward. The kids call this my story number 4. I think it's my 4th favorite story. But I was so I was working as a janitor in this monastery, and once a week, all the lights go out in Rome.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's, the electric company is run by Italians.
Yeah.
And so the electricity went out for like 4. No offense, they're great people. I learned to live from the Italians, but apparently not very good electricians because the electricity all went out.
Father Wetta, you're a man after my own heart. Continue.
That's great. I made a that's like when people say, I'll pray for you. I'm like, why would I need your prayers? I'm a professional. Like, I don't want some amateur. I made a professional comedian laugh.
And
That's
I'm going to
awesome.
pray for you so hard, it's unreal.
Yeah, I don't need that. Thanks a lot. Thanks, but no thanks. I've got my own person. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So all the lights go out. 3.5 hours. They come back on, and there's an old monk in the elevator. He's been stuck there for 3 hours. So as the janitor, they have me go pry him out, and sweaty and hot, and it's the middle of the summer, and I pull him out, and he's just beaming. He's this old Trappist.
Yeah.
And he's just like, thank you so much. And I remember saying to him, what is your problem?
Yeah.
Which is not a nice way to talk to a monk. But he says, problem? I just spent 3.5 hours in an elevator. And he walked away, and I thought, I'm going to have to follow up on this one because I don't understand. So at dinner that night, after dinner was over, because monks eat in silence,
yes.
I found him and I said, wait, would you explain this to me? He says, well, yeah, I'm a lecturer at the École Biblique or whatever it was called. No, that's in Jerusalem. At whatever, Sant Anselmo, Monastero Sant Anselmo.
Yeah.
And he says, I spent all my time writing articles and giving talks and giving speeches and researching. He's like, but there I was. He said, I had nothing to do. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear anything. I had nowhere to go. He says, I just prayed. And he said, and it was so good. He said, it was like he says, I had the 3 hours of the best prayer I've had in months. And I went back to my room that night and I wrote in my journal, like, I could never be a monk, but there's a power there that I want.
Yeah.
Right. And for the next couple of years, like whenever I get stuck in traffic or stuck in an elevator, I don't think I was very often stuck in elevators, but whenever I'd find myself in a situation that was like tedious, I'd say, okay, I'm going to be a monk now. I'm going to pretend like I'm a monk. And there is a wonderful way. I had this this friend in graduate school who used to say, the problem with you Catholics is that when you're happy, you're happy. But when you're miserable, then you're really happy. Right?
Yeah.
And he had a point because this is a situation for this monk that would have driven me nuts, that would be horrifying and uncomfortable to anyone else. But to him, it was the high point of his year, which either meant he had a horrible life or, on the other hand, like how good were the good parts if that was the best?
Right.
So, and then, of course, when I came to the United States and then went to grad school, that monk said to me, oh, there are monks in St. Louis. And at the time, I'm going to change all the names here because I don't want anybody to...
Yeah, to protect the innocent.
I was engaged to be married, as it were.
That happens.
I'd given her a pair of earrings and she went, and I said, no, not yet. But she was very beautiful. She was runner-up Miss, we'll say, Tennessee.
And you were the second funniest guy in Houston. You're perfect together.
No, I'm not going. Okay.
Continue.
Anyway, she was very beautiful. She had these beautiful eyes. And my mother taught me how to draw. So when I get bored in class, I would draw her eyes I'd try to draw her eyes in the margins.
Yeah.
And, but I noticed that after a couple of months of visiting this monastery, I had stopped drawing Anne's eyes. and I started drawing little pictures of monks.
Yeah.
So it literally took that place. Like I would say to myself, like, I wonder what they're doing now. Like I wonder if I can introduce them to my parents. Like I wonder, am I coming on too strong? You know, like, it was like I had thought about being a priest when I was young, but then I hit puberty and I was like, nah, to hell with that.
Yeah.
Or to heck with that. And but I didn't. I just sort of fell in love and couldn't stop being there.
Yeah. I found that about as I was converting, I just began to like fall in love with it in a very like serious way. Not in the way you love video games, not in the way you love like jogging or whatever, in like a this is my life now sort of way. So you said something
at the level of the will, like I tell the kids, like, you can. Everybody says follow your heart. Don't do that. Like,
no.
That's a terrible advice. Like, I'd have been married and divorced 20 times by now. Like this year.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And, or think carefully about it. And of course, you don't want to do something you hate. And you don't want to do something that's stupid. But at the same time, there's a level below all that says, like, I belong here. This place smells right. Like, or she smells right or something, I guess.
Yeah.
For those who are
I'm with
dating.
you. And there's also something about like, because true love is like,
I don't know why smell came to me, but there is something about like, about the smell that makes you feel right. It's so good.
True love isn't about pleasure. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it's really hard and awful, but you're like, I'm committed.
Well,
I'm committed, unfortunately.
Before I was while I was a professional juggler, I was also a beach lifeguard, and
that's a pretty intense job.
It was. Yeah, I did. I was the least self-disciplined, so they put me at the hardest places because that way I would be occupied.
Yeah.
And I made over 300 rescues, full-fledged, and only 3 deaths.
Incredible.
So yeah. It was pretty good odds.
Yeah, that's a wild job. That's like the special forces of lifeguards. I was a Boy Scout. I got my lifeguard badge. I was a swim team kid when I was real young.
Yeah? Which stroke did you swim?
I'm just a freestyle. I'm too dumb. I did the IM for a while.
Something tells me you're a lot smarter than you let on.
I don't know about that. I was not a butterfly guy. My shoulders are no good.
No one's a butterfly guy.
I had a
friend.
Women
make great butterflyers.
Robbie Woodliff. Man, he was the butterfly guy, and I remember
Robbie Woodliff.
I was always jealous of him. I was always jealous of his ability to butterfly. But I was a freestyle kid. But I was a lifeguard. That was a job I had at one point, but at a pool. And it was very, very part-time. But I remember watching videos of like beach lifeguards and all the training and they're swimming around the pier and they're working out and everyone's jacked. And it's like a scary, legit job. And I remember being like, dang, that's cool. I would love to rescue people.
Like we would go out to bars and as we walked in, they'd say, go with some beach patrols in the house.
Yeah.
You know? We actually had a game where you'd see how far, what kind of ridiculous things we could do before they kick us out.
Yeah.
Because we were part of the sheriff's department as well to make it even cooler.
So cool.
But the point of all that was that the kids, my students sometimes asked me, which was cool, which is more fun, being on the beach patrol or being a monk.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have this deal that I can refuse to answer a question on the grounds that may give scandal or something. But but if I answer it, I will tell them the absolute truth. So, and if truth be told, it was way more fun being a lifeguard. In my defense,
yes,
there's nothing more depressing than a 50-year-old lifeguard.
Yes,
I mean, so because my I don't know why I'm talking about my mother so much. She made me promise never to preach a sermon about my sainted mother. But I mean, talk about her again. She had a friend in grad school who had worked with Andy Warhol. Did I tell you this already?
You told me earlier, but you can tell me again.
Oh, okay.
You told me a little bit about it.
Well, anyway,
a tiny bit.
The punchline, we'll just skip straight to the punchline.
Let's do it.
The punchline is her friend said to her, "You're a fool if you sacrifice joy for the sake of fun."
Yes.
Right? And being a lifeguard was probably more fun, although being a monk is pretty fun sometimes. Yeah.
But the joy.
But the joy comes from really is hard earned, is about vocation and about suffering. Like I just did a wedding on Saturday and I messed up the names because the best man was Aiden, and the groom was Alban. And
Come
so
on,
I said,
you got to get a
"Charlotte, will
different
you-"
best man.
I said to her, "Charlotte, do you take Aiden to be your lawful?" Blah, blah, blah. And she goes, "No." And I looked at her. I was like, "You're right. Sorry about that." I was like, "But know this: there will come a day when you will wish you had married Aiden, and that's when the vows kicked in. That's when you will prove that you love Alban, is because you will stick with him even though he's obnoxious." You know,
That's fun.
But I think my students are always like, "Well, it's so unfair if you that you shouldn't have to stay with one person your whole life if, say, they cheat or they're a mean person or something." And I say, but the whole point of the vows is that one of you is going to want out.
Yeah.
If you naturally wanted to stay together your whole lives, there'd be no point in it. You just.
When I was a secular person, people point that out. There's no
Yeah.
possible way you want to stay together forever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I knew
Oh.
that is a fact.
Really?
That's a true fact, right? There's no way that you're I would say in 0.001% of cases do a couple who are together for 70 years want to stay together for 70 years by virtue of just like the lightness of their heart and like, "Ooh, I just love you every day." There
Yeah.
will be months, weeks, days where you're like, "I want out." One of you wants out. And then I thought, so marriage is a sham. Well, then I became Catholic and I had marriage explained to me correctly. And I realized, no, marriage is the opposite of a sham because it's the vow that I will withstand that month and I will
Yeah.
roll back around and I will be so thankful I chose joy over pleasure.
Right.
And I chose commitment over my heart because my heart is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, is it ever. And my intellect is so often wrong. We have an old monk, Father Finbar. He's an Irishman who joined an English monastery. So
Right.
he loves to fight. And the novices were having this debate over some theological discussion. He said, "Father Finbar, solve this for us." He goes, "Well," he says, "my guess is that there's someone in the world smarter than both of you who disagrees with both of you. I'm going with that guy." Which,
That's a really good
which is
answer.
actually a surprisingly logical way to think about it. Like,
Yes.
so obviously, like my intellect is not dependable because I just go with whoever's smartest in the room.
Right, right. And so, okay, I have been asking this question at the end of both the other podcasts I did, and so I'm just
Are
gonna,
we at the end already? I want to keep going. Let's
I
keep
know.
going.
I wish we killed
Yeah.
it. But you know
We
what?
killed it.
Firstly, you're wonderful, and I can.
Thank
I
you.
will
You're
I can
wonderful,
call you
too.
on the phone and we can podcast, or
Okay.
just have a fun conversation together more.
Okay, anytime.
And I plan on coming to visit you.
Oh yeah, do. Oh, that'd be so
and
fun.
then you told me I might be
But-
able to wear robes.
Yeah, I've got. Well,
Do you have brothers in your order, or is everyone ordained?
Well, okay, that's a complicated question. We have brothers, but during the Reformation in England, they killed all the brothers and the priests, except for one named Sigebert Buckley. Great
Nice.
name. And so ever since then, if you become a monk, they just ordain you because there just weren't enough priests around.
Yeah,
they were all
yeah.
killed. And for that reason, also, we don't tonsure.
Yes.
And we don't grow beards because those are both dead giveaways, so to speak.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's very
Dead giveaway.
man. The English, yeah, they killed everybody over a guy wanting to get divorced. What a crazy time. Okay,
Yeah, it was.
so before we go,
By the way, one of the founders of my monastery
Yes.
was Father Timothy Horner, whose great grandfather was Little Jack Horner, who sat in the corner with his thumb in the pie.
oh,
Yeah, and he was a custodian at an abbey in Yorkshire, and then he helped Cromwell dissolve the monastery, and then got a piece of it for himself. So pulled out the plum and said, "What a good boy am I?" It was an anti-Protestant nursery rhyme that they used to tell in
that's incredible. Also, this is
Yeah.
the first and only podcast in the history of the world that has referenced not one but two janitors at a monastery.
Wow.
You and the other custodian. Okay.
We okay.
So, this question.
Shout out, by the way, to Lamar and Derek, who are the most awesome. I won't say they're even janitors. They're more like spiritual directors to me.
Nice.
Derek actually really, when Ferguson thing happened, he like kind of explained it all to me.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I
He's the
see the
janitor
world.
at your monastery, I'm assuming.
Well, kind of. He's more like just sort of everything there. The place just sort of shuts down without him. But yeah, like technically you would call him a janitor, but in reality, he's much more.
Okay, so the question is,
Yeah, right, okay.
What is a moment that you had recently, and it doesn't have to be profound in any way, it just simply needs to be a moment where you were very happy and you were in this moment and you were just aware that you were happy. What was making you happy? How were you happy?
I'll tell you what, well, this moment makes me happy.
I love it. That's a fair answer.
But this moment makes me, I'll tell you, oh gosh, it would take a whole nother story. Can I tell one more story?
Yeah, let's go.
I was, okay, all right, no. Okay, I think of a more recent one. Okay, this last summer, I go down to LA once a year to be on the beach because I surf. And
I surf as well.
No way.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
So right now I live in North Carolina.
But you'll move to LA if you eventually, right?
Oh, I surf when I can. I learned to surf in New York, so it's a whole thing. But I go to Huntington Beach when I can to surf. I lived in Queens and then Bed-Stuy, but I learned to surf at Rockaway. That used to be my local. The 90th Jetties are my local.
I used to surf in New Jersey, and now that I'm a big shot famous person, I get to go to New York, to Los Angeles, and they give us a plane ticket and $200, and if you've been in the monastery long enough, you can work for someone for a month. And so I work in Long Beach, which is in a inner city parish, and I do some masses for him. And in return, he lets me go out every afternoon and surf.
Fun.
But I was there for 4th of July, which is crazy because fireworks are illegal in Los Angeles, like everything fun. And so the gangs put on fireworks displays. Right?
Yes.
And Compton competes with Long Beach, which competes with Wilmington, which competes with San Pedro, and it is the most spectacular, like easily $60 million worth of illegal fireworks.
Yeah, I've seen the videos.
You've seen it?
I've seen the videos.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Well, okay, it starts at dusk. It doesn't let up until dawn, I found out.
Yeah.
But I went to visit my friends in Wilmington, Wilmos West Side, and I'll tell you why I know that, which is around 3 a.m, I'm like, well, I gotta go to bed. Like, I'm a monk. Like, I usually go to bed at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you'll never get home because the cholos are blocking off the streets. I'm like, what's a cholo? They say, well, you'll know when you see them. And so I get in the car, and I sure enough, there are these very large, very scary guys with like face tattoos.
Yes.
And
I'm friends with a few very cool guys. Sometimes.
I was a little put off. But they're standing there blocking off the street because for safety reasons, right? But I think it's to keep the cops away. And so I'm about like 8 blocks from where I'm supposed to be, and there's this big dude standing there in the middle of the road with a teardrop tattoo and a goatee, and he looked like something out of a movie. He had the flannel shirt buttoned up to here, and a tattoo on his neck that said, I'll put it politely, to heck with your life.
Yes, okay.
It said on his neck. So I kind of pull up real slowly, and I lean out the window and I say, thanks for the fireworks. Do you mind if I just scoot through here? He says to me, please exit the vehicle, sir. Like he's a cop. And so I stepped out, and I'm dressed like this, and he goes, what are you, Holmes? Like that. And I go, well, I'm a priest. And his friend goes, no, he isn't. Or actually said, no, he ain't. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm really in trouble here. So I go, Benedicate omnipotens Deus. He goes, whoa. He goes, let me get my kids. So I blessed all 3 of his kids. His friend brings his kids. The whole group of them said me blessing holy medals and rosaries and portraits of their mother. And they bring out a bag of tamales. We sat around and had a beer. It was so great. And then they were all taking selfies with me. But none of the ones with the tattoos would do it. The only guy they let me take a selfie with was the one guy who didn't have any tattoos. And they taught me how to say, Westside Wilmos, what? Anyway, I ended up till dawn anyway. But the best part of it was, and whenever I tell this story, I get choked up because as I was getting into the truck, he says to me, sorry, I can't help
It's
myself.
beautiful. No,
he
no.
says to me, I have nothing to give you.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you gave me a great story. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? But I was telling this I say mass for the missionaries of charity, and
Yeah.
I was telling them this story, and one of them comes up to me afterwards and she says, that's why they will get into heaven before we do.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, I can't tell that story without
Father,
getting choked
that's
up.
beautiful. You're getting
Yeah.
me choked up out here. Oh, man.
So it turns out guys with face tattoos
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
all right.
They can be okay sometimes.
Well, the thing was, like, I was afraid of them.
Yeah.
Right, clearly.
Yeah, yeah.
But when they saw Christ in their midst, I didn't see him, right?
Yeah.
But they saw him and they reverenced him. I don't think they ever even asked for my name. They didn't care.
yeah.
I was Jesus for a moment, and they didn't strike me as church-going types.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. But when Jesus was there, they recognized him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
so
didn't.
beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, Father, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Shake my hand,
yeah.
you maniac. This is great. I appreciate you. Thank you for giving me
Thank
your
you. I
time.
appreciate you too. Thank you for your witness.
Yeah.
I saw you this afternoon taking pictures with all these kids, and I know that's exhausting, but it's also like people get to have a bit of your nobility, you know.
Yeah.
And that's really a gift to them. So thank
Well,
you.
I love you, Father. I can't wait to
I
come
love
stay
you
with
too,
you.
Shayne. Come anytime.
All right, bye, everyone.
We'll dress you up like a monk.